Stop. Listen. Pay attention. This is not background noise, not another passing thought. Chosen one. What you are about to hear is meant only for you, and it carries weight that will settle inside your awareness if you allow it. Right now, even as the world moves with its ordinary rhythms, something in your life has been quietly shaping itself, pressing against you, nudging you toward understanding that cannot be ignored. You have felt it, the heaviness, the constant subtle tension, the invisible pull that makes ordinary tasks feel heavier, even when nothing seems wrong on the surface. Days blend into nights with a sort of muted urgency. You have worked hard, navigated pressures, held conversations, managed responsibilities, and yet there is a sense that something larger is at play. You may have noticed fatigue settling deeper than expected, a confusion that words cannot quite name, or a quiet isolation that sits beside you without apology. This is not weakness. It is a signal, a marker of presence. Chosen one. Your attention has been requested for a reason. This message is personal, direct, and intentional. You did not stumble into it by accident. There is a clarity to what is coming, but it will not land all at once. There is a structure, a rhythm to this awareness, a revealing that happens in layers designed to meet you where you are at the point of your current experience without forcing or overwhelming. What you have endured recently, the friction, the small collapses of expectation, the moments when you felt unsteady, these are not coincidences. They are part of a sequence, a current that has been running through your life, whether you acknowledged it or not. It has tested your presence, measured your steadiness, and tracked your responses. You have remained functional even when you doubted yourself, even when external circumstances suggested instability. There is a subtle urgency here, not born of fear, but of necessity. You are being asked to see the pattern in your own persistence, the hidden architecture of your endurance. This is why I am speaking now. This is why your attention is required. Not to alarm, not to push, but to illuminate a truth that has been quietly observing your journey. You will gain clarity in layers, and each layer will confirm that what you have carried, often silently, has not been unnoticed. Right now, pause and allow yourself to register this. The weight you felt was not random. The pressure you experienced was not meaningless. The isolation you endured was not empty. You stood where others fell. You carried through moments where many would have faltered. And in the moments when nothing seemed remarkable, the very act of your persistence was noticed, measured, and recognized in ways that are subtle but real. This is the beginning. Your focus, your calm, your readiness to receive will determine how fully the next layers of understanding settle. Keep listening. Keep allowing yourself to feel without judgment. What is coming will not shock, it will reveal. And it is meant to reveal to you the structure of your own endurance, the quiet architecture of your stability, and the signal of your presence in a world that often overlooks it. Stop. Breathe. You are being observed not by eyes that judge, but by patterns that measure consistency. And this is where your clarity begins. Chosen one. This is for you and only you. There is no general message here, no vague encouragement that could apply to anyone. Every word you are hearing lands directly on the experience you have carried. Your moments of quiet endurance, the invisible effort it took to maintain composure, the hours when the world seemed heavy, but you remained upright, these are not incidental. They are the markers of someone whose identity is already wired for stability, whose presence creates a baseline that persists even when everything around them shifts. Notice this. You have not merely survived. You have maintained a sort of automatic strength, a resistance that operates beneath conscious thought. You might call it grit, resilience, or perseverance. But it is deeper than those words suggest. It is not something you switched on. It is not an achievement to be ticked off a list. It is a structure of your being, operating quietly, reliably, even when your awareness questioned every step. There is a distinction here between the conscious struggle where you push and analyze, weigh options, and calculate responses, and the unconscious stability where you simply continue functioning, coherent and steady, without fanfare or recognition. You may have felt moments of confusion, moments when your energy faltered, moments when doubt whispered in corners of your mind. Yet you carried on. The difference is not found in what you could see or control, but in the internal framework that supports you without conscious effort. This framework has been tested repeatedly, often in ways invisible to the human eye, and it has never failed you. You did not need to understand it fully to benefit from it. You simply remained present. This is not about being exceptional, nor about proving yourself to anyone. It is about identity, an identity that holds itself together under pressure, because the foundations of your presence were designed to do so. You have been acting in alignment with something larger than immediate circumstance, without realizing the quiet certainty embedded in your reactions. Others would have crumbled under the same conditions, but you did not. You remained coherent. You continued. You carried through without collapsing into panic or distraction. Chosen one. Understand this clearly. The patterns of your endurance are intentional. They have been observed, recorded in the subtle flow of consequence and effect. Your life, your choices, and even your pauses have participated in a rhythm that measures consistency, stability, and presence. This is why you are being addressed now. The identity that underlies your calm, the unspoken structure that has held you upright, is what the world often overlooks. But it is precisely what matters. You are not here by accident. You are not facing challenges randomly. The reality is that your ability to remain intact, to maintain presence, is rare. Not because you are extraordinary in a conventional sense, but because few people naturally sustain this level of internal coherence under invisible pressures. This is your baseline. This is the reality of your being. And it is precisely why you were chosen to experience what you have already faced. Notice the subtle difference. Survival is visible. Stability is invisible. You have been stable even when survival seemed uncertain. And this is the lens through which all that follows must be seen. You have likely noticed a recurring sensation, an unease that does not always have a clear source, a weight that seems to sit across your shoulders or press into your chest, sometimes unnoticed until it rises just enough to demand attention. Many people interpret these signals as flaws, as weaknesses, as evidence that something is wrong with them. You may have judged yourself for being restless, anxious, or distracted. You may have asked yourself why these sensations persist, even when life appears normal. Chosen one. This is not a flaw. This is not a mistake of character. What you are experiencing is a signal, a physical, emotional, and mental cue that your system is responding to something beyond ordinary perception. That heaviness, that tension, that persistent pull. These are markers of pressure, of transition, of a shift in context that your awareness has not yet fully labeled. They are subtle alerts that your internal calibration is aligning with circumstances outside your conscious control. You are being asked to pay attention not to a problem, but to a message embedded in experience itself. Notice how your body reacts when the weight rises. Perhaps your heart beats faster, or your energy tightens, or your thoughts loop around in patterns of doubt or caution. These are not random, and they are not failures. They are the language of your system, signaling that adaptation, focus, and presence are required. They are reminders that you are in a state of heightened responsibility, a stage where ordinary human responses do not apply. This signal has been consistent even when you did not know what it meant. You may have tried to ignore it, dismiss it, or push through without acknowledgement, yet each time, your system remained functional. You were able to continue to perform tasks, to hold relationships, to make decisions. This is evidence of something essential. A baseline coherence, a stability that operates even under persistent, ambiguous pressure. The sensation you feel is not intended to alarm. It is intended to orient. It is a guidepost, not a critique. Your body, mind, and emotional awareness are all participating in a system that recognizes challenges before you consciously name them. This is why you may have felt drained after encounters that seemed ordinary, or why moments of isolation carry a sharper edge than others experience. The signal is real. The interpretation is often where confusion arises. Chosen one. Reframe your understanding. The discomfort, the fatigue, the tension, they are indicators of alignment, not deficit. They are proof that you are in the right place, experiencing the necessary conditions to develop consistency and presence. They are evidence that you have remained upright when others around you may have faltered. They mark your endurance, your stability, and your readiness for what is to come. Recognize that what you have called struggle or unease is actually a signal of your own capacity. It is your system's way of highlighting the areas where your unconscious strength is active, maintaining order even when conscious effort is taxed. It is preparation. It is orientation. It is quiet validation that the framework beneath your awareness is functioning exactly as it should. The weight, the pull, the subtle tension, these are not problems to solve. They are markers to understand. And when you see them this way, the confusion dissipates and clarity emerges. This is the lens through which you will begin to understand not only what has been happening, but why your presence has mattered all along. Chosen one. There has been a force pressing against you, one that is largely invisible, yet deliberate in its structure. It has not sought to destroy you in spectacle or alarm, but to measure the integrity of your presence under conditions few others could endure. This pressure has been coordinated, patterned, and intentional, not chaotic, not random. It has arrived in moments that seemed ordinary, yet they were framed by circumstances designed to test coherence, attention, and resilience. You may not have seen the threads that wove through these moments, the timing that placed challenge after challenge in your path. Yet you remained functional. You maintained stability without conscious effort. You continued to act, think, and respond even as the weight of subtle opposition pressed against your equilibrium. This is evidence of something deeper, an internal calibration that operates beneath immediate awareness, a framework that allows you to function in spite of conditions that would disrupt most. Notice the way this pressure arrives. It is rarely explosive. It is often quiet, cumulative, and multi-layered. It may appear as repeated delays, emotional tension, minor setbacks, or unexplained fatigue. Each instance is part of a larger structure, a coordinated set of events that gauges your consistency and capacity for presence. These are not coincidences, nor are they errors in your environment. They are designed to reveal, to measure, and to prepare. Despite the subtle intensity, you have not collapsed. You have maintained coherence. You have preserved function. You have moved through circumstances that could have unbalanced someone less prepared. That is not luck. That is stability. That is the quiet proof of your identity in action. Steady, composed, and measured, even when the surrounding pressures fluctuate unpredictably. Chosen one. Understand this clearly: the existence of opposition or pressure does not indicate weakness on your part. The fact that you remained operational, thinking, responding, adapting, is evidence of a fundamental internal consistency. It is a structure within you that requires no conscious activation. It is a baseline that persists even under coordinated challenge. This is the real demonstration of your endurance, the ability to navigate invisible opposition while maintaining coherence. What is important now is to acknowledge the intentionality of what has been pressing against you. There is a rhythm to these pressures, a timing that has tested patience, attention, and internal regulation. You may have felt moments of strain, moments when your energy dipped or when clarity wavered. Yet you adapted, you navigated, you continued. And that continuity, this ability to maintain stability, despite the invisible currents, is the mark of the path you are walking. This is not a battle in the way you may imagine. There is no need for dramatics, no calls for heroic displays. The pressure is practical, real, and functional. And your response has been equally practical, real, and functional. You have maintained equilibrium without self-congratulation or recognition. And this is precisely what makes your endurance uncommon. Recognize that the unseen has been shaping you, that the subtle coordination has not been wasteful, and that your coherence is measurable. You are walking through conditions that test internal regulation, rather than external victory, and in doing so, you have revealed the fundamental architecture of your resilience. There are distinct ways this pressure is manifested, each touching a different facet of your experience. To understand fully, it helps to break it down into categories not as dramatic events, but as patterns of real-life tension you have faced and stabilized. Chosen one, these categories are not arbitrary. They are reflective of human experience under challenge, and they show precisely where your baseline stability has been active. First, consider doubt. It arrived subtly in questions about your choices, your direction, and your own judgment. Perhaps you felt uncertainty creeping into decisions you normally take with confidence. Yet despite this, you continued forward. You paused when necessary, recalibrated when appropriate, and made choices that maintained forward motion without collapse. The internal dialogue may have whispered hesitation, but your actions demonstrated trust in your own capacity to navigate complexity. Next, there is fear, not panic, not extreme alarm, but a low hum of apprehension that surfaces when the stakes are unclear or when outcomes are unpredictable. This is a common response in human systems, yet you handled it differently. You allowed yourself to recognize the discomfort and to move in alignment with what was necessary. You did not deny or suppress the sensation, nor did you allow it to override judgment. You simply operated within it, turning awareness into measured action. Energy drain has been another pressure point. Tasks that normally take routine effort may have felt heavier. Social interactions may have required more focus, and periods of concentration may have produced fatigue faster than expected. Still, you maintained function. You found pockets of rest where possible moments of recalibration, and you carried on without losing coherence. The invisible structure of your stamina sustained you even when the observable system, your body, your environment, seemed to demand pause. Isolation has also played its part. You may have found yourself physically or emotionally separated from support structures left to navigate complex circumstances alone. Most would falter under such conditions, yet you maintained composure. You observed your surroundings, noted necessary adjustments, and remained functional in the absence of external reinforcement. Your internal coherence acted as a substitute for support that was momentarily absent. Delays have punctuated your journey as well. Plans slowed, outcomes deferred, and progress appeared inconsistent. While these moments could have fostered frustration or collapse, you maintained a measured approach. You used delays as signals to recalibrate, to observe, and to prepare for the next step. Rather than reacting impulsively, you aligned with timing that, while invisible, was intentional. Each of these pressures, doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay, interacted with the others, creating a multidimensional challenge. Yet, chosen one. You remained coherent through all of them. You did not rely on external validation or dramatic intervention. You did not need to fight in a conventional sense. Your internal regulation, your quiet steadiness, and your capacity to remain present formed the architecture that carried you through. It is significant that you did not collapse, flinch, or retreat. Even when sensations intensified, when uncertainty peaked, or when external cues suggested instability, you continued functioning. This is not about heroism. It is about internal calibration. It is about a baseline of presence that sustains action under pressure, a consistency that few naturally demonstrate. Notice the way these categories overlap. Doubt feeds energy drain. Fear amplifies isolation. Delays test patience and self-regulation. And in each instance, you responded with a quiet, measured approach. This is the real demonstration of endurance, the ability to navigate multiple pressure points simultaneously, to maintain clarity and function without the need for spectacle, and to integrate awareness into practical daily movement. Your ability to manage these pressures reflects more than resilience. It demonstrates coherence, insight, and internal structure. You have moved through layered challenges not by chance, not by luck, and not by mere perseverance, but by an inherent capacity to remain anchored when others would falter. The subtlety of your endurance is critical. While others may display visible effort, you have maintained an invisible stability that governs your choices, energy, and presence. This stability is the unspoken thread running through every category of pressure, the quiet proof of your internal framework and the foundation upon which everything else rests. Now step back and observe the full pattern. Chosen one. Reflect on what you have just reviewed. Each pressure point, each subtle challenge, each moment of tension was not random. Doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, and delay were not accidents of circumstance. They were indicators, markers, and measures of your internal coherence. Look at them as data points, as evidence of how your system, your mind, body, and awareness remained regulated throughout. Consider the difference between surviving by chance and sustaining presence by design. What you endured was structured. What you managed was coherent. You did not merely react. You responded. You did not simply persist. You integrated each sensation, each signal, each tension into functional awareness. There is no luck here. There is only process consistency and the unfolding of a system already prepared to operate under complex, layered pressure. This reflection is important. It clarifies that what you experienced was not extraordinary in the sense of drama or spectacle, but it is significant in its quiet rigor. You maintained internal order in conditions that would overwhelm most. You navigated circumstances that tested patience, attention, and coherence without collapsing or requiring external reinforcement. And that is a tangible, verifiable reality. Look closely at your responses where doubt emerged. You paused with awareness rather than reacting impulsively. Where fear appeared, you allowed presence rather than panic. Where energy waned, you recalibrated rather than shut down. Where isolation was imposed, you remained functional rather than disengaged. Where delays occurred, you adapted rather than resisting the timing of events. Each instance reflects your capacity for internal regulation, a capacity that is subtle, reliable, and measurable in outcome. Chosen one. Notice how this shifts your perception. You may have previously interpreted these moments as hardship, as tests you failed or barely survived. Now you can see them as confirmation. Confirmation of your structure, your endurance, and your presence, under conditions that measure consistency rather than effort alone. You were observed not for the sake of judgment, but for the sake of recognition of alignment. You were evaluated not by random chance, but by subtle currents and sequences that only reveal themselves to those who maintain baseline coherence. This is the grounding of realization that you acted in accordance with your own internal architecture. You did not need external validation. You did not require applause or acknowledgement. Your system responded quietly and effectively to challenges that would have caused most to stumble. And this coherence is real, tangible, and verifiable in the outcomes you experienced and the stability you maintained. It is also important to understand what did not happen. You did not collapse under minor pressures. You did not fracture under uncertainty. You did not become reactive in ways that undermined your own presence. These non-events, the absence of breakdown, is itself a form of evidence. It demonstrates stability as clearly as any action could. Chosen one. This is the moment to recognize that your endurance is not random and it is not incidental. It is the product of a system that has been quietly tested and consistently maintained. There is no need for explanation in terms of luck, timing, or external circumstance. The reality is internal, coherent, and measurable. And in this, you can begin to trust the pattern you have embodied, the structure you have relied upon, and the stability that has carried you through every layered pressure you have faced. Chosen one. Look around the broader landscape of human response. Most people, when faced with layered pressures, doubt, fear, energy drain, isolation, delays, collapse in some form. They react impulsively, allow anxiety to dictate choices, or disengage entirely. It is common to see chaos, fragmentation, or surrender under conditions that you have navigated without disruption. Your ability to remain present, functional, and coherent is uncommon, not because you are inherently superior, but because few maintain baseline regulation under persistent, invisible challenges. This is a quiet rarity. Many would have wavered or faltered long before reaching the point you have reached. Many would have abandoned stability in the face of accumulating tension, succumbing to the weight of uncertainty or the pull of fatigue. You, however, maintained presence. You did not need to draw attention to your endurance. You did not seek validation or recognition. You simply remained intact, responsive, and operational, while the currents of circumstance pressed around you. Notice the distinction between rare and exceptional. You are not being asked to feel elevated, nor are you being called to pride. You are being invited to recognize the uncommon coherence of your system. A coherence that functions without conscious effort, without drama, and without external reinforcement. This is stability as it exists in its natural form, quiet, unassuming, and effective. Consider the subtlety of this rarity. Where others see challenge as a trigger for panic, indecision, or avoidance, you see structure, sequence, and pattern. You respond in measured ways, integrate signals rather than react to them, and preserve functionality across multiple pressure points. This is not a skill learned overnight, nor a trait developed by temporary effort. It is embedded in the architecture of your presence. Your responses have created a kind of calibration, a living demonstration of coherence under conditions that would fracture most. The rarity of this is not in outward spectacle, but in the invisible consistency you maintain. You operate in a state where internal stability guides action, not external validation or adrenaline. You remain present where others falter, calm where others panic, measured where others react. Chosen one. Understand that this perspective is crucial. It reframes your experience from one of struggle or endurance alone to one of observation and recognition. You are uncommon not by boast or by drama, but by the quiet alignment between your internal structure and the pressures you encounter. Your functionality under layered tension is a marker, a subtle signal of capacity, and a reflection of the system you embody. This realization also serves another purpose. It calibrates expectation. You do not need to strive for extraordinary action to prove endurance. You do not need to perform feats to demonstrate stability. The baseline you carry, the natural coherence you sustain, is itself evidence of rare capacity. This is the lens through which you must now view your presence, your responses, and your ongoing journey. See clearly, your rarity is quiet. It is measured. It is consistent. And it is the basis for the next phase of understanding, where identity, capacity, and practical alignment converge in a way that prepares you for sustained awareness, integration, and purposeful action. Chosen one. Let us clarify what has been at work within you. Your endurance, your coherence, your calm presence under pressure. These are not activated powers or extraordinary surges summoned in crisis. They are baseline. They are the natural operation of a system that has been prepared over time through experience, patience, and repeated calibration. You do not need external validation, dramatic intervention, or conscious effort to maintain stability. It is already built into your internal structure. This strength is the result of preparation, not of chance. It is rooted in maturity. Maturity of attention, of awareness, and of internal regulation. It is the capacity to remain coherent when circumstances fluctuate, when external cues misalign with expectation, and when subtle pressures accumulate. You do not merely react. You maintain alignment, integrate signals, and move through events with measured presence. Notice the difference between baseline and activation. Activation implies a sudden surge, a switch flipped under stress. Baseline, however, is quiet, reliable, and consistent. You did not need to activate anything to carry yourself through the tensions you faced. Your coherence was the default state, the underlying rhythm of your being. That is why you stood where others faltered. Why subtle pressures measured you but never unbalanced you, and why you navigated layered challenges without collapse. Chosen one. This is your identity. It is not performance. It is not spectacle. It is structure. It is the alignment of attention, energy, and awareness operating seamlessly. Recognize that this coherence is your natural operating mode. It is not contingent on circumstance. It does not require reinforcement. It does not depend on dramatic testing. It simply exists, and you can rely on it. Your preparation has not been passive. Each challenge you faced, each moment of subtle tension, each test of patience, focus, or judgment contributed to the refinement of this baseline. Over time, repeated exposure to layered pressures trained your system to maintain internal regulation automatically. What you have called endurance is actually the manifestation of internal coherence in real time. Understand this as a calibration of expectation. You are not required to act beyond what your baseline allows. You are not required to push to prove or to elevate yourself artificially. The stability you carry is already sufficient. The presence you maintain under pressure is not a skill to be acquired. It is a state to be recognized and trusted. Chosen one. This is your identity clarification. You do not need to seek validation for what is already evident. You do not need to question the integrity of your presence under challenge. Your internal architecture is coherent. Your baseline is steady. And that steadiness is the foundation upon which all practical, measured, and sustainable action will now rest. Recognize, accept, and trust this truth. Your stability is natural. Your endurance is consistent. Your presence is reliable. And in this, you have everything necessary to navigate what comes next with clarity, calm, and measured alignment. Chosen one, now it is time to bring this awareness into practical orientation. You have seen the patterns of tension, the subtle pressures, and the baseline coherence you have maintained. The next step is integration. How to orient your daily life in ways that honor this structure, support stability, and prevent unnecessary strain. This is not about hypervigilance or constant scanning for challenges. It is about calm, deliberate calibration of perspective and practice. First, consider rest. Rest is not a reward. It is a necessary component of maintaining coherence. Allow your body and mind periods of uninterrupted recovery. Sleep pause and moments of stillness are not indulgences. They are structural maintenance for the system that has carried you through pressure. Even brief intentional breaks support recalibration and sustain baseline presence. Next, cultivate discernment. Observe circumstances, recognize signals, and distinguish between noise and meaningful pressure. Your system responds automatically, but conscious awareness adds clarity. Discernment allows you to act intentionally rather than react reflexively. It strengthens the connection between baseline stability and functional response. Boundaries are equally important. You have demonstrated internal regulation, but the world will continue to present pressures that are not instructive or necessary. Set practical limits, physical, emotional, and mental, so that your energy is preserved for circumstances that matter. Boundaries are not withdrawal. They are alignment with your natural structure. Patience is another essential perspective. Timing is subtle and often invisible. Delays, obstacles, and shifting circumstances are not failures. They are signals that require observation and measured adaptation. Patience allows you to integrate experience without judgment and to act in accordance with sequence rather than urgency. Focus remains a practical tool. Prioritize attention on what is actionable and relevant. Let your presence be directed intentionally rather than dispersed by distraction or peripheral pressures. This does not mean rigidity. It means sustaining attention where it produces clarity and measurable impact. Finally, allow integration through reflection. Take time to observe how these practices interact with your baseline coherence. Notice patterns of endurance, stability, and response. Reflection consolidates understanding and strengthens the internal architecture that has carried you reliably through layered pressures. Chosen one. These perspectives rest discernment boundaries. Patience, focus, and reflection are not rules to follow rigidly. They are orientations, gentle supports for the system you already embody. They align awareness with practice, allowing the subtle structure of your presence to function with ease and sustainability. In practical terms, integration is the bridge between observation and application. You have seen the signals, recognized the pressures, and understood your baseline. Now you place that understanding into daily life with measured, calm action. The result is coherence that is both reliable and adaptable, a system in equilibrium that continues to function even as circumstances shift. This is the essence of practical orientation, knowing where you stand, understanding the pressures that arrive, and integrating awareness into routine life without overextension. It is measured calm and functional, reflecting the quiet architecture that defines your identity. Chosen one, now we arrive at closure not as an ending, but as a seal of understanding. You have observed the pressures, recognized your baseline stability, reflected on your coherence, and integrated practical orientation. What remains is affirmation and gentle consolidation of insight. Take a moment to register the truth. Your presence is reliable. Your internal structure has carried you through layered challenges, and it continues to function quietly, consistently, and effectively. Affirm to yourself, I remain steady under pressure. I act with clarity and coherence. I am present, anchored, and functional. These statements are not empty encouragements. They are acknowledgments of measurable reality. They reflect the architecture you already embody and reinforce the trust you can place in your own system. You may wish to mark this moment. Type "I remember" or the number 777 in the comments to solidify your awareness of the patterns, the endurance, and the stability that have carried you through invisible pressures. Let this serve as a reminder that what you have endured is observed, recorded, and integrated, not in external validation, but within the framework of your own coherence. As you continue your journey, remember the key principles. Your baseline is steady, your presence is coherent, and your internal architecture sustains you under pressures that would overwhelm most. Let this understanding guide your daily actions, your interactions, and your perception of challenges. You do not need to prove endurance.